Hello, welcome to another Walking Dead video, and today we're talking about Fear the Walking Dead and the top 10 best Fear the Walking Dead characters. And I thought this would be quite easy, just making the 10 best characters. However, getting to 10 is not as easy as I thought of, just because a lot of characters on Fear are just mid-tier or just terrible. So some people on this list are literally barely on this list just because they're either mid-tier characters or they're just kind of the best of the worst, if you know what I mean. But let's jump right into some honorable mentions, some characters that are almost on this list. They were almost good enough to be in the top 10. And we have three. We have Howard, we have Teddy, and we have Walker. All three characters are well acted and they are all very fun to watch. They all have very interesting stories and they're all very entertaining. So now let's jump right into 10th place, and this one was really hard to make because I had so many characters. I was like, well, they're kind of okay, but I feel like Dwight is my number 10. He just beats out the honorable mentions. He was either going to be an honorable mention or number 10, but I kind of was like, which character would I rather see again? I would always love to see Walker again. However, Dwight I just find really good because he's a Walking Dead character. My opinion is kind of affected by The Walking Dead, so I don't see him as just as the Fear character. I see him on The Walking Dead too, so I connect them and I'm like, okay, I look how good he was on The Walking Dead, I really liked him on The Walking Dead, so that kind of affects my opinion of him on Fear. So I do like Dwight. I think he's a good character. I feel like he has a good story. Austin Amino always plays Dwight really well. However, I do feel like in recent seasons he's been really badly written, and that's definitely lowered my opinion on him. If I was doing this a year ago, he could easily be number 7, in my opinion, for Dwight. However, I feel like there's other characters and the stories he's had in season 7 has really affected me and has made him very much indifferent. I kind of was like, oh, it's Dwight, he's cool. I have cool memories of watching Dwight. I like him in previous seasons. I like him on The Walking Dead. But Dwight now, the story arc they're doing now, the writing for him now, is not the best. So, because of that, Dwight's in number 10. Moving on to 9th place, we have Daniel. This character is barely on this list also, and it's basically because of the writing. Season 1 to 3, he was basically my favourite character. He has really good writing, really good story. However, each season goes by, Daniel becomes more and more dislikable. He's still in my top 10 favourite characters because of all that goodwill he had from the earlier seasons, but Daniel now doesn't deserve to be in the top 5 or the top 8, to be honest. He's barely on this list just because how good he was earlier, but Daniel now has really bad writing. His stories are really boring. However, when we do get those nice cool glimpses of Daniel going psycho, it really makes me love the character again. And even though season 7 was really badly written, I really like Daniel's episode just because we had crazy Daniel again. So Daniel is a character that you have a massive roller coaster with quality and stories. However, you still have the same actor being amazing in his job, and you sometimes get the glory of psycho, like CIA trained Daniel. So because of that, Daniel has to be on this list. Now in 8th place is Alicia. I know a lot of other people would have Alicia a lot higher. However, Alicia was never going to be in my top 5. I didn't really like Alicia until really season 3, season 1 and season 2. She was okay, but season 3 is where she really hit her stride and became her own character. Alicia's such a good character. She is such a good lead, and the actor, Alicia Down-Carey, is really good if she's given the right material. She's so low down my top 10 just because how bad the writing is, especially for her exit. But Alicia before her exit is really good. I can't just judge everyone by their season 7 appearance. So looking at Alicia as a whole, she definitely is a really strong, very interesting and very fun to watch character. She has really cool writing sometimes. She has some really cool story arcs. I really like season 4 Alicia. I'm going to be honest, season 4 Alicia is really good. So Alicia definitely has to be here just because how good a story is overall, how well she is acted most of the time, and she could have been a great lead if she was given the material for it. In 7th place is Troy, and this character is definitely going to be on this list. Like, a lot of people would expect Troy to be on this list just because he had such a good story. He was such a cool character. He had such backstory. He wasn't this shallow character like some characters on Fear now. He wasn't like, okay, generic doctor type, if you can guess who I'm talking about. That's all they're going to do. Troy was this kind of deeply flawed, broken character. He wasn't just, oh, I'm the bad guy. No, he was kind of a flawed character that eventually became good and then suffered because of their past mistakes. Troy had such a good story. It was cut a little short, so I can't put much higher. But this character was well beloved by many fans, and even in season 5, people were like, oh, Troy's going to come back. Like, before people knew that it was Dwight, people were suspecting to be Troy. And this definitely proves how beloved Troy is, when people were believing that he was going to return, even though we saw him literally get his head caved in by Madison. Troy was just such a very interesting character with such a cool and interesting story. He was very fun to watch, and he was definitely one of the highlights of season 3 in my opinion. In 6th place is Travis, and this is another character just like Troy that died way before their time, way before the arcs were finished, and just too soon, so we couldn't get to really know them and properly love these characters. But the 2 and a bit seasons that Travis was in were absolutely fantastic. He was definitely my favourite character in season 1 and season 2. He had such a great story arc. He was always well acted, well written, and he was so likeable, fun to watch. It was so good to see this man just trying to hold on to the old ways and slowly be broken by the world to become more savage. However, I have to say this again, he was killed way too soon in my opinion, but looking back at the first 2 seasons, he was definitely the protagonist. Like, Madison became the protagonist after Travis, in my opinion. She was never originally the protagonist in my eyes in the first 2 seasons. It was Travis's story in the first 2 seasons, in my opinion. And he was such a good protagonist. Shame we didn't get much more with him, but I have to mention him on this list just because he's such a cool character, and I still miss him, and it'd been so much cooler to have him in the show for a bit longer. Now moving on to 5th place is Strand, and this is another character like Alicia that has gone down in my opinion just because of the bad writing now, and I feel like his story is over, especially after season 7. Strand's one of those characters that should have died, and maybe if this show goes on for as long as The Walking Dead did, Strand might end up in eventually the top 10 worst characters if they continue with Strand. I feel like Strand has a finished story. However, his story so far, minus season 7, has been a very good story of him trying to do the wrong things for the right reasons. Strand is a flawed man that will do anything for the people he cares about, and the actor is Common Domingo is absolutely stealing every scene that he's in. Every time I review a Fear episode of Fear the Walking Dead and Common Domingo's in it, I always make sure to mention how good his acting is, because he always gives it his all, and it makes Strand such a watchable character. Like, you always want to watch Strand, you never want to see Strand lose, because if Strand lose, no more Common Domingo. He's definitely the best thing about Fear at the moment, so I have to put him on this list. However, as I said earlier, his story's over in my opinion, and Strand could have died. And I feel that we don't have the original season 1 to season 3 Strand, which was this kind of anti-hero. We kind of have hero Strand and then villain Strand, no in between, which really sucks. So the original Strand, though, will definitely be a lot higher, but looking at Strand overall for all the seasons we've had, Strand is definitely an A-list character, but he's not as good as the ones next, because I really like the next characters. So let's jump right in to 4th place, and it is Madison. She is in 4th place just because she is such a good character, and these top kind of 4 or 5 characters are all very liked. These are the characters that I really like, so it's really hard to kind of mix them up. But Madison, 4th place, you kind of could change it into 3rd if you want to, but I'm going to stick with 4th place just because I really like Madison. However, I feel like we haven't seen enough of her for me to have a full opinion of where to place Madison. So she's coming here in 4th. She's such a good actor, Kim Dickens, and she brings a lot to The Walking Dead and The Walking Dead universe. I feel that Madison is definitely my favourite character season 3 and season 4. She was such a good character. I really like her story. Madison's always been very well written in my opinion, to be like this kind of very maternal, like mother type, and she'll do anything for her family. We always had kind of my favourite Madison in season 3, just because look at for season 3 Madison, she loses Travis, so she goes full on like kind of mama bear, and if you try and hurt one of her kids, bam, you're dead. And we get to see the full front of this is when she just killed Troy, just because Troy put her family in danger a couple of days ago. Bam, no second thought. And I really loved the ruthlessness of Madison, and it was so good just because where we were looking at Fear at the time, Madison could have easily become a villain, And that would have been such a really cool kind of origin story for a villain with Madison. But I don't think they're going down that story anymore. So I'm not going to put any higher of this, just because Madison being a villain would have been a higher and more interesting character than Hero Madison. I also do not like Sick Madison that we're getting currently in season 8 and in season 7. I thought that was kind of boring. I don't think it's going to be a cool idea, and I definitely think it's just going to be somebody dropped, and the writing's not going to be very good for her. So she can't be up there in the top 3, because these top 3 characters have really good writing in my opinion. And let's move on to third place, and this is quite controversial because I know some people don't like this character, and it's just Morgan. I just think Morgan is one of those only characters that are on Fear that have always kind of been written well, outside of season 5, of course. Morgan even was written well in season 7. I really enjoyed Morgan in season 7, and Morgan is definitely one of my favourite characters in the Walking Dead universe. So I had to put him on this list because Morgan is so good. I really like the character development that Morgan's gone through on Fear, because the Walking Dead kind of had too much big of a cast, so they didn't really know what to do with Morgan. So he had a copy of Carol's story. Like, if you go back and watch Morgan and Carol's stories during the same time they're on the show, they had identical arcs basically, but in reverse in a way. But Morgan's story on Fear, as he became the new lead, has been him about moving on from his dead family and no longer being mentally ill, which is his whole thing on 8 seasons of The Walking Dead. On Fear, in half the time, they give Morgan a family, and now he has a reason to fight. He kills for his family. Morgan's such an interesting character, and I have to put on this just because how well I feel like his arc has been on the show. Like, he's one of those few characters that get well written arcs every season, and it's definitely because he has so much screen time. But Morgan is definitely on this list just because how much Johnny James is a perfect cat on Morgan, how good he is in every scene that he is, and how good the writing is around Morgan. In otherwise terrible seasons outside season 5, Morgan's had a really good arc and really good writing, so he definitely has to be in this list. In second place, the runner-up is going to be John Dorie, and this man was definitely the heart of Fear, and he was the only thing good about the reboot. He's the only reboot characters that I actually like every other reboot character you might see him on another list, hint hint, but John Dorie's the only character that I'm like, bam, he's lovable, he's got an amazing actor that performs and well understands what he needs to bring to the table. He was definitely made to be the Glenn of the show and the heart of the show, and it really worked. Everyone loved John Dorie, and John Dorie always had a good arc. Like, he even made June, which I really don't like, a good character in my opinion, just because she was connected to John Dorie and bettered John Dorie a lot, like how Glenn bettered Maggie in The Walking Dead. John Dorie did the same to June. I really do like his death as well. He was one of the characters that I felt like had a really good death that was very impactful for the story. John Dorie's death impacts the story, unlike a lot of other deaths on Fear, which are like, oh, characters died, let's move on. No, they have entire episodes dedicated to the grieving of John Dorie. The whole back half of kind of ending of the key arc is because of John Dorie's death. And he was always well written, he was always well acted, and he was definitely my favourite character. Like, John Dorie is the only character on Fear, I think, that's died that I was like destroyed by, and I was like, oh god, they've actually killed a character I liked. Every other character is like, oh, they're dead, sad, but move on. But I was hung up on John Dorie's death for weeks, so he definitely has to be on this because I cared about John Dorie that much. Now, in first place, and everyone's going to expect who's in first place, it is Nick. I did just spiel on about how much I like John Dorie. However, Nick was such an interesting character, and he was around during the good seasons, which definitely bumps him up. I really like Nick for how he had such an interesting story. A lot of characters were like, okay, we have this, this is our gimmick. But you've never really had the story that Nick's gone through. It's a very unique story of being an addict, going through withdrawals while the world falls around him, and then adapting super fast. Like, he was a Shane type of character, and that made him so good, just because you saw these other characters being like, oh no, the world's ending, what do we do? Especially other characters like Travis, who are very slow. Nick was the polar opposite, and he adapted super fast, so we got a very interesting story with Nick, like, covering himself in guts, thinking about walkers, like, thinking walkers are actually kind of like people still. We had very interesting perspectives with Nick, and he always had very good stories. Nick also had an okay death, but I feel like it was kind of tarnished by what happened after, so I don't really want to talk about that. But looking at Nick while he was alive, he had such a great arc. He was always well written, and he was definitely meant to be kind of the Daryl of the show. Like, I would see Nick as Daryl, definitely, for Fear. And I'm just going to mention the actor was, in my opinion, one of the better actors from the earlier seasons of Fear. With Fear being just such a small cast, you could clearly see who was the better actors and who was the worst actors, who had kind of better understanding of their character and who didn't. And Nick was up there in kind of second to third place of definitely one of the best top actors of the first 3 seasons. So I have to put Nick here because he was such a lovable character, and he was kind of the soul and the kind of face of Fear, in my opinion. You never really saw Madison as the face. You kind of saw Travis as the protagonist, but he wasn't the face. Like, what made Fear was the things that Nick was doing the different things. Like, you had Nick trying to live with the hordes and stuff like that before the Whisperers. Nick always had very interesting arcs, and he was definitely my favourite character, and it was so cool to see him around for a bit longer. But you know what happened? The terrible writers came and ruined everything. But this is my video, and these are my top 10 best characters and my favourites for Fear the Walking Dead. And please tell me down below, what are your favourites? Do you agree with my list? Do you disagree with my list? And if you disagree, give me your list. I want to know your favourite characters. Who you like the most? Who you hate? Give me your top 3 most hated characters as well. And if you want more Walking Dead content, look on the screen. I recommend you do click on one of the videos you see, because you will find something you like, and guaranteed you will enjoy it. Like, you will like it, you will enjoy it, guaranteed. And also, while you're there, I recommend you subscribe to the channel for more things Walking Dead all the time. If you want to keep up to date with all things Walking Dead, any show in the universe, even the movies if they eventually come out, make sure to like and subscribe so you can keep up to date with all things Walking Dead and have more quality content like this. But this is it for me today. Goodbye, peace out.